Today is January 31st. Welcome to Big Book Daily. My name is Rob. I am an alcoholic. It is a thrill, honor, and joy to be here with you in this lifeboat of recovery as we journey through the 12 and 12 and the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Today we will be reading Chapter 8, Two Wives, pages 115 through 121. So we'll finish up that chapter today. And then we'll be reading Step 5 in the 12 and 12, pages 57 and 58. As I try to say in most episodes, I need to do it in every episode. I am not a speaker on behalf of AA or anything like that. I'm just a guy that loves these two particular books and loves to read through them. And one thing I do need to preface to is I hope that I never ever come across like this is the only way to be sober, or I hope I never come across preachy or anything like that. I really try at the end of every episode to just share my experience and strength and hope. Because let me tell you something, we're all different. We're all going to respond to this in different ways. I can only talk about my experience, and my experience has been that I've had to go through these books and I've had to do the steps, but my relationship with my higher power, I did have one before, but I feel like it's much, much richer since I've done these things. It's forced me to be honest and humble, and, everyone's a little different. So if I ever come across preachy, that is definitely not intentional, and hopefully I can avoid that at all costs. But anyways, enough of that rambling. Let's get to the big book. Page 115. The same principle applies in dealing with children. Unless they actually need protection from their father, it is best not to take sides in any argument that he has with them while drinking. Use your energies to promote a better understanding all around. Then that terrible tension which groups the home of every problem drinker will be lessened. Frequently, you felt obliged to tell your husband's employer and his friends that he was sick, when as a matter of fact, he was tight. Avoid answering these inquiries as much as you can. Whenever possible, let your husband explain. Your desire to protect him should not cause you to lie to people when they have a right to know where he is and what he is doing. Discuss this with him when he is sober and in good spirits. Ask him what you should do if he places you in such a position again. But be careful not to be resentful about the last time he did so. There is another paralyzing fear. You may be afraid that your husband will lose his position. You are thinking of the disgrace and hard times which will befall you and the children. This experience may come to you, or you may already have had it happen several times. Should it happen again, regard it in a different light. Maybe it will prove a blessing. It may convince your husband he wants to stop drinking forever. And now you know that he can stop if he will. Time after time, this apparent calamity has been a boon in us, for it opened up a path which led to the discovery of God. We have elsewhere remarked how much better life is when lived on a spiritual plane. If God can solve the age-old riddle of alcoholism, He can solve your problems too. We wives found that, like everybody else, we were afflicted with pride, self-pity, vanity, and all the things which go to make up the self-centered person. And we were not above selfishness or dishonesty. As our husbands began to apply spiritual principles in their lives, we began to see the desirability of doing so too. At first, some of us did not believe we needed this help. We thought on the whole we were pretty good women, capable of being nicer if our husbands had stopped drinking. But it was a silly idea that we were too good to need God. Now we try to put spiritual principles to work in every department of our lives. When we do that, we find it solves our problems too. The ensuing lack of fear, worry, and hurt feelings is a wonderful thing. We urge you to try our program, for nothing will be so helpful to your husband as the radically changed attitude toward him, which God will show you how to have. Go along with your husband if you possibly can. If you and your husband find a solution for the pressing problem of drink, you are, of course, going to be very happy. But all problems will not be solved at once. Seed has started to sprout into new soil, but growth has only begun. In spite of your newfound happiness, there will be ups and downs. Many of the old problems will still be with you. This is as it should be. The faith and sincerity of both you and your husband will be put to the test. These workouts should be regarded as part of your education, for thus you will be learning to live. You will make mistakes, but if you are in earnest, they will not drag you down. Instead, you will capitalize them. A better way of life will emerge when they are overcome. Some of the snags you will encounter are irritation, hurt feelings, and resentments. Your husband will sometimes be unreasonable, and you'll want to criticize. Starting from a speck on a domestic horizon, great thunderclouds of dispute may gather. These family dissensions are very dangerous, especially to your husband. Often you must carry the burden of avoiding them or keeping them under control. Never forget that resentment is a deadly hazard to an alcoholic. We do not mean that you have to agree with your husband whenever there's an honest difference of opinion. Just be careful not to disagree in a resentful or critical spirit. You and your husband will find that you can dispose of serious problems easier than you can the trivial ones. Next time you and he have a heated discussion, no matter what the subject, it should be the privilege of either to smile and say, "This is getting serious. I'm sorry I got disturbed. Let's talk about it later." If your husband is trying to live on a spiritual basis, he will also be doing everything in his power to avoid disagreement or contention. Your husband knows he owes you more than sobriety. He wants to make good. Yet you must not expect too much. His ways of thinking and doing are habits of years. Patience, tolerance, and understanding and love are the watchwords. Show him these things in yourself, and they will be reflected back to you from him. Live and let live is the rule. If you both show a willingness to remedy your own defects, there will be little need to criticize each other. We women carry with us a picture of the ideal man, the sort of chap we would like our husbands to be. It is the most natural thing in the world, once his liquor problem is solved, to feel that he will now measure up to that cherished vision. The chances are he will not, for, like yourself, he is just beginning his development. Be patient. Another feeling we are very likely to entertain is one of resentment that love and loyalty could not cure our husbands of alcoholism. We do not like the thought that the contents of a book or the work of another alcoholic has accomplished in a few weeks that which we struggled for years. At such moments, we forget that alcoholism is an illness over which we could not possibly have had any power. Your husband will be the first to say that it was your devotion and care which brought him to the point where he could have a spiritual experience. Without you, he would have gone to pieces long ago. When resentful thoughts come, try to pause and count your blessings. After all, your family is reunited. Alcohol is no longer a problem, and you and your husband are working together toward a dreamed-of future. Still another difficulty is that you may become jealous of the attention he bestows on other people, especially alcoholics. You've been starving for this companionship, yet he spends long hours helping other men and their families. You feel that he should now be yours. The fact is that he should work with other people to maintain his own sobriety. Sometimes he will be so interested that he becomes really neglectful. Your house is filled with strangers. You may not like some of them. He gets stirred up about their troubles, but not at all about yours. It'll do little good if you point that out and urge more attention for yourself. We find it a real mistake to dampen his enthusiasm for alcoholic work. You should join his efforts as much as you possibly can. We suggest that you direct some of your thought to the wives of his new alcoholic friends. They need the counsel and love of a woman who's gone through what you have. It's probably true that you and your husband have been living too much alone, for drinking many times isolates the wife of an alcoholic. Therefore, you probably need fresh interest and a great cause to live for as much as your husband. If you cooperate rather than complain, you will find that his excess enthusiasm will tone down. Both of you will awaken to a new sense of responsibility for others. You, as well as your husband, ought to think of what you can put into life instead of how much you can take out. Inevitably, your lives will be fuller for doing so. You will lose the old life to find a much better one. Perhaps your husband will make a fair start on the new basis. But just as things are going beautifully, he dismays you by coming home drunk. If you are satisfied he really wants to get over his drinking, you need not be alarmed, though it is infinitely better that he have no relapse at all. As has been true with many of our own men, it is by no means a bad thing in some cases. Your husband will see at once that he must redouble his spiritual activities if he expects to survive. You need not remind him of a spiritual deficiency. he will know of it. Cheer him up and ask him how you can be still more helpful. The slightest sign of fear or intolerance may lessen your husband's chance of recovery. In a weak moment, he may take your dislike of his high-stepping friends as one of those insanely trivial excuses to drink. We never try to arrange a man's life so as to shield him from temptation. The slightest disposition on your part to guide his appointments or his affairs so he will not be tempted will be noticed. Make him feel absolutely free to come and go as he likes. This is important. If he gets drunk, don't blame yourself. God has either removed your husband's liquor problem or he has not. If not, it had better be found out right away. Then you and your husband can get right down to fundamentals. If a repetition is to be prevented, place the problem along with everything else in God's hands. We realize that we have given you much direction and advice. We may have seemed to lecture. If that is so, we are sorry. For we ourselves don't always care for people who lecture us. But what we have related is based upon experience, some of it painful. We had to learn these things the hard way. That is why we are anxious that you understand and that you avoid these unnecessary difficulties. So to you out there who may soon be with us, we say, good luck and God bless you. All right, so we have a footnote at the bottom of this chapter. I'll read that as well. The Fellowship of the Al-Anon family groups was formed about 13 years after this chapter was written. Though it is entirely separate from Alcoholics Anonymous, it uses the general principles of the AA program as a guide for husbands, wives, relatives, friends, and others close to alcoholics. The foregoing pages, though addressed only to wives, indicate the problems such people may face. Alateen, for teen-aged children of alcoholics, is part of Al-Anon. If there is no Al-Anon listing in your local telephone book, you may obtain further information on Al-Anon and Alateen family groups by writing to its World Service office. All right, my friends, in the 12 and 12, we are in the heart of step 5 here. We're on the bottom of page 57. When we reached AA, and for the first time in our lives stood amongst people who seemed to understand, the sense of belonging was tremendously exciting. We thought the isolation problem had been solved. But we soon discovered that while we weren't alone anymore in the social sense, we still suffered many of the old pangs of anxious apartness. Until we talked with complete candor of our conflicts and had listened to someone else do the same thing, we still didn't belong. Step 5 was the answer. It was the beginning of true kinship with man and God. This vital step was also the means by which we began to get the feeling that we could be forgiven, no matter what we had thought or done. Often, it was while working on this step with our sponsors or spiritual advisors that we first felt truly able to forgive others, no matter how deeply we felt that they had wronged us. Our moral inventory had persuaded us all around forgiveness was desirable. But it was only when we resolutely tackled step 5 that we inwardly knew that we'd be able to receive forgiveness and give it too. Another great dividend we may expect from confiding our defects to another human being is humility, a word often misunderstood. To those who have made progress in AA, it amounts to a clear recognition of what and who we really are, followed by a sincere attempt to become what we could be. Therefore, our first practical move toward humility must consist of recognizing our deficiencies. No defect can be corrected unless we clearly see what it is. But we shall have to do more than see. The objective look at ourselves we achieved in step 4 was, after all, only a look. All of us saw, for example, that we lacked honesty and tolerance, that we were beset at times by attacks of self-pity or delusions of personal grandeur. But while this was a humiliating experience, it didn't necessarily mean that we had yet acquired much actual humility. Though now recognized, our defects were still there. Something had to be done about them, and we soon found that we cannot wish or will them away by ourselves. Okay, man, some powerful stuff there. While it's fresh, I love that definition of humility there, or description of humility there. To those who have made progress in AA, it amounts to a clear recognition of what and who we really are. So that's part of it. I know for me, I would deceive myself. Oh, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that bad. Or I'm a pretty good guy deep down. I've just got this drinking problem. I've got or this or that. But truthfully, alcohol was a symptom for me. I was selfish, self-centered, insecure, all these things. And then right here says, followed by a sincere attempt to become what we could be. A sincere attempt. I don't have to be that guy anymore. Thank God for that. And it's by doing these steps that I learned a lot more about myself, and I gained some solutions of how to be the guy I want to be. The guy I think God intended me to be all along. So yeah, that was great humility. And speaking about the guy I want to be, going back to the big book real quick. Let me get the page pulled back up here. So it's on 118. Your husband knows he owes you more than sobriety. He wants to make good. I think about the pain I caused my own family. I can't take it back. That's the serenity prayer. I can't change that. But I do want to change today. And I want to make good and make those living amends today. To be the man my bride deserves. For me, these steps help me to live that daily. And it's practical stuff. I'm kind of slow. So I need practical advice. And that's why these steps really help me they force me to be humble and honest. Because I have some amends to make. And my family deserves it. Anyways, that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much for joining me in this lifeboat of recovery, and we will see you back here tomorrow.